Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today I wanted to do another update on my food forest. Now I know there's been lots and lots of updates, but it's continually progressing and we are so close to planting, and I wanted to show you what I've done and also what is growing these days. There's a lot of fun things that are happening, so let's go see what's going on. Now the first thing I wanted to show you was my Maypops. We've had some cold. I've actually had to cover them the last couple of nights because we've gotten close to the 30s, but they're still looking fine. This one's suffering a little bit more than the others, but we actually are getting some new growth down at the base. I don't know if you could see that. And they're looking pretty good, so I'm really excited to see if I can get these to survive this year. And when I say survive this year, this is probably my 6th attempt at growing Maypops, but I haven't tried for the last several years, and I've never covered them in the spring, you know, when frost threatens to come. So I'm hoping that by covering them, you know, giving them a good deep mulch and giving them a really nice warm area, that we're going to succeed this year. My poor forest Pansy Red bud, you know, I lost half of it this spring, literally half, actually maybe a little bit more than half because of the drought over the winter, but it is starting to sprout its leaves, and aren't those gorgeous? I just wanted to show you that, even though I guess it's not an edible plant, but it is still part of my forest. The Jujube is starting to sprout. This sprouts really late. You know, the leaves come out really late, so it actually avoids most of the late frosts that we get. So we should have a good crop of fruit. It's looking really healthy right now, a lot of good growth. My service berries are starting to get fruit, and they're looking really good this year. They've put on a lot of new growth. I think it helps that I added an actual separate irrigation system to these. This is a drip irrigation that is connected to my front yard. I'll put a video up at the top that shows you how I put that irrigation system in. This one has gained quite a bit of height to it. It's supposed to only be about 8 feet tall, but I think this one's hit 10 now. And we've got mulch. I was able to spread maybe not quite half of it, but it is a good deep layer. We've got about 4 to 6 inches, you know, just depending on where you are in this yard. About 4 to 6 inches of mulch down. We have that much left that's got to cover this entire area. The pears are setting really nicely, and we only have a few apples this year. I think this is starting to try an alternate bear. So I've done some reading, and what I found that I'm going to do next year, if we get a heavy fruit set next year, what I need to do is remove all of the apples off of every other clump like this. Last year, all I did when I thinned them was just thin it down to 1 apple per bunch, and I didn't thin out any of the bunches. So from what I've heard, to get apples to stop ever bearing, you've got to take out some of the fruiting spurs. Now, not take out the entire spur, but just take all the apples off of that spur. So I'm going to try that next year. Now last year, I was able to put organza bags over all of my apples. And we've got some over here on my September Wonder Fuji. I put organza bags on my apples and on my pears. But this year I'm so busy trying to get this food forest installed that I don't know if I'm going to have the time to do that. So we may end up with some damage on my apples again. But that's okay. We'll figure it out. You can only do what you can do. The other thing I accomplished is, in my last tour, I showed you the irrigation line for my food forest. This is a blank irrigation line with no holes in it, but it's set up so that I can add the drip lines to it. And the most exciting thing of all is we had rain. This entire area was bone dry. I was going to spray my lawn with Roundup to kill it, because I do that. I do use Roundup. But it just died on its own because it was so dry, so I didn't need to use Roundup. And the topsoil that I put down was really, really dry, so I was a little bit worried that I was going to have to go and put sprinklers over the top to wet everything down. But it did it on its own, and I'm really happy about that. So I'm hoping that I can get this area covered, you know, by midweek, and then I'll do a video on planting my fruit trees, and I'll show you what's going on with those. The other thing that I accomplished was I was able to put the drip system on this hill. Let's go up here and look at my rosemary. As you can see, my rosemary is not looking as healthy as it has in previous years. It was starting to suffer due to the lack of water up here. You can see all the yellow branches and everything. So now, you know, it's never really had irrigation on it, but it's never gone as long as it has without any rain. So I'm hoping that the irrigation is not going to be too much for it. We're only going to water once, maybe twice a week, and we'll see how that goes. But I was worried that I was going to lose this rosemary. Now here's my onions and cilantro. I absolutely hate the leaves on cilantro, but I love the coriander seeds. So this is going to seed right now. It'll bring in beneficials and it'll bring in pollinators. Plus I'll get to harvest the seeds. So I may come through here as soon as I get one. You know, I only need, you know, one of them to set seed because it'll set a ton of them. I may come in here and thin out the rest so the onions have a chance to grow. The garlic is looking gorgeous. It's not quite time yet. No scapes yet either. I did not cover the tomatoes during the cold weather, and it looks like we've got a little bit of cold damage, but not too much. But I think these should be fine. Now I did cover my peppers, and it looks like they even suffered more cold damage. So I don't know if these are going to be stunted or not. I really hope I get a crop of peppers off of them because I've been looking forward to it. Do have some flowers that are actually getting ready to set some fruit. So we'll see how it goes. The basil did not get covered, so it must not have gotten too cold because there is no damage whatsoever to the basil. My peaches need to be thinned desperately. I've been out here, you know, I have like 5 minutes at a time where I'll come through and pull off a bunch of peaches, but I don't know if you could see down there, there's quite a few that I've pulled off, but I've only pulled them off of this branch. I've really got to get in here and thin so I don't break any branches this year. It just takes so long. And I don't have a lot of time this year. So let's see, like when I say thinning, we've got two right here. Can't choose a bigger one because they're both the same size. Take that one off down there. There's two down here. Take that one off. What I do is I just reach around until I feel them, and then I try to keep maybe on this size branch, maybe one peach on each. But I usually fail. I got to get some more down here. And on this tree, well, this tree has been fine. I haven't broken any branches off this one. I haven't broken any off of my nectarine, but you can see, let's see if I can zoom in on that. You can see how heavily it's set. I've got to get to that really quickly here. But this tree right here, my O. Henry peach, I've lost just about everything because I've not ever pruned it enough, or because I haven't thinned it enough. Cherries are looking great. We're gonna have a bumper crop again this year. The plums are starting to get big. Well, I wouldn't say big, but they're getting bigger. We've set quite a few. There's a good sized clump there. I don't thin plums. They tend to self-thin themselves. So the plum tree is looking good. We're going to get a lot of plums. Here's my hillside. And I'll put a video up at the top on when I created this compost pile, and you can see how much it's subsided. This is just since, let's see, October. I put all the leaves in here, and it was almost, to the middle of the fence. And they are just composting right down. Pretty soon I'll be able to consolidate some of the piles. Through here, underneath my peach trees, I just let whatever herbs want to grow, I let them reseed. So all of this is just plants that have reseeded themselves. I have a ton of lovage. I've done videos on lovage. I've got some lettuce seedlings that I harvest and use. I've got yarrow. We've got some lemon balm. This right here is bee balm. It's spreading itself all over. We've got some comb flowers that's reseeded themselves. More lemon balm. And then huge amounts of parsley. We've just got tons of parsley and some that are getting ready to set seed again. Right here is just the prettiest little columbine. I had them in my front yard and they don't like it there. They haven't grown there anymore, but every year they just kind of reseed themselves right through here. The grapes are putting on a lot of growth. We're going to get a lot of grapes this year. These are all their flower buds. So I'm excited about that. This one right here is a Jupiter grape. My poor little raspberry patch. I keep looking every day to see if I could see signs of any more of the raspberry cane borers. And I'm not seeing any yet. But we are getting flowers so that we can get some fruit set. I hope these turn out okay. I've had a lot of problems with them, to the point where I've been thinking about possibly pulling them out. But we'll see how they do. One thing that I might do, and I've already prepared the area for it, so I may just go get them. So this is a drip line right here. And I can put blackberries through this area. What I would need to do is find a way to contain them. That's one of the reasons I haven't put them in yet. It's back here, the raspberries are contained by the sidewalk on the back side. I pull all the little runners on the front side, but through here, there's no way to block the runners that are going to go into my flower bed back there. So as soon as I figure out a way to block them, I may put some blackberries here. Now, one other thing that's been great about this rain is this topsoil was really, really soft and it was really difficult to get my wheelbarrow through it. So I was kind of worried because the guy who dumped my mulch didn't dump it as well as the guy with the topsoil, and he only dumped it clear in the back. So I'm going to have to use the wheelbarrow to get it up here to the front. And since the wheelbarrow wasn't going through the topsoil very well, I thought that was going to take a long time and a lot of energy. But now with the rain, this has settled down quite a bit, so it shouldn't be a problem getting the wheelbarrow over the topsoil, so I should be able to complete that pretty quickly. And then get planting. This area through here is ready for more plants. It's hooked to my garden drip system, so it can take a little bit more water. What I'm thinking is I have a honeyberry on the south side of my house that's fried. I'm thinking about moving that right here because this gets some shade. It needs a little bit of shade. We're done with having big dump trucks drive over this area. You can see it's kind of compacted area. I need to come, use my garden fork and loosen this up a little bit. But I'm still not quite sure what I'm going to plant up here, other than I may plant one of my pomegranates here, and I may put one of my pawpaws here. We'll see how it goes. One thing that I did plant already is I planted 6 of these. These are I think it's called Schoenbraun or something like that, Golden Physalis, and it's a tall annual ground cherry with giant ground cherries on it that are really, I hated them when I first ate them because they tasted a little bit like papaya, but I really learned to like them. So I planted 6. I guess I'm going to have to like them. Here's my pawpaw. I think this was planted in 2009 or 10. I can't remember which year that was. So it's done quite well. As you can hear, there's storm coming through here, so I've got to hurry. Possibly got fruit setting. This time of year, it's a little too early to know if these are going to actually stay on the tree and form fruit. But this is what the flower looks like. Oh, it's kind of hard to see. Let's see if I can tip it. There's the flower. Isn't that pretty? And then it turns into this. which is the fruit. Usually I get 1 or 2 in a bunch, but there's several of those areas that have set what looks like might end up being fruit. We'll see how it goes. One of the reasons this one doesn't set as much fruit as it could is that we do not have a pollenizer that is ready to flower yet. My pollenizer over here finally came out of dormancy. No flowers on it, but it didn't die. So I need to get a shade up and protect it again this year, and make sure that the water, it stays watered so it doesn't die off like it did last year. I lost about 3/4 of it when my irrigation failed. Over here I planted several of my pineapple ground cherries, and we actually have fruit starting on it. They stayed in the pot for so long that they started fruiting. Look at this, it's not food either, but I'm gonna have a peony bloom here shortly. Here's another one. My chase tree is fully out of dormancy and growing well. We'll see what we can do with the pruning on it to make it look a little bit better, but I'm not worried about it anymore. My poor little Golden Falls redbud, weeping redbud, we'll see if this pulls out of it. We'll see if it starts getting any new growth. It's just really not happy. It's had this is a lot of its cold damage, transplant shock, wind damage. It's had a rough go of it. And look at my pistachio. It's got a lot of good new growth on it. It's doing really well, and so is the one in the back. Now I may need to move my chokeberry. This chokeberry is starting to show signs of, chlorosis. And part of it is that the irrigation from my neighbor's grass does flow over onto my property a little bit. So I think it's getting double water, and it's a drought tolerant plant. So I may need to move it somewhere where it doesn't get as much water. Maybe I could put another hydrangea like this one over here, because hydrangeas can take quite a bit of water. Here's another pineapple ground cherry. And my fig is putting on a lot of new growth. Now it's been growing really slowly. I don't see any little figlets forming yet. I'm just not sure why it's growing so slow. But last year it didn't put on much new growth until about July, and then it took off. And this is my honeyberry. I may need to fertilize it again. This looks like nitrogen deficiency to me. So I need to fertilize it, but this is the one that I think I'm going to move to the backyard. And all this damage on the edges is grasshoppers. Now I did put down some Nolo bait for the grasshoppers. I'm hoping that will slow them down this year. Now it's starting to rain, so I'm going to need to do this really quickly, but I wanted to show you my plants. Up here they seem to do really well. They're not showing any cold damage. I did leave them inside during the cold snap. They got rained on and they seem to have perked up really well. Even my little pawpaw right here, I don't know if you can see, but it's getting some new leaves coming out. This one is still green. I'm not sure if it'll recover, but it does, at least it's green, so hopefully it'll recover. This is a bush cherry. This is a bush cherry down here, and it's still got new growth coming up. So if I can get these planted, maybe we'll have them survive. And look at that beautiful pomegranate flower. So we'll see how it goes. So now it's starting to rain, and so I'm going to need to do a quick end to this video, but I'm really glad that you joined me on this adventure, and I'm really excited to hopefully show you some planting next week, and I hope you have a wonderful garden adventure.